Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the second week of our 2024 Eco Ambassador Solutions Lab. We have a really exciting session planned today. As you're all aware, final projects are due in a story map format. So we're going to dive deep into discussions related to story maps and how to create them. And we have wonderful experts that are joining us today to lead the discussion. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. If you're not comfortable being on camera, then don't enable your camera when you're speaking. Please stay on mute throughout the session, and feel free to unmute during discussion and Q&A sessions. And if you have any questions for either of the organizers or the guest speakers, feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box to communicate them. Again, just a reminder that this program is organized and led by the SDGs Today program at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the Center for Sustainable Development at the Earth Institute at Columbia University. And this year's program is sponsored by Sea Grant New York and Sea Grant New Jersey. And we have a group of wonderful partners that support this program throughout the years. And just a reminder of some of the group goals that we discussed and came up with in our first session. You can find these in Google Classroom as well. So if you want to review them again or add to them, feel free to use the discussion function in Google Classroom to add to this list. We do have a couple of housekeeping items that we wanted to go over at the end of the session related to your ArcGIS accounts and other details. So we'll come back to that towards the end of the session. But for now, I'd like us to jump right into the really exciting tutorial that our colleagues from Esri have prepared for today. So we're very honored and pleased to have Michelle, Lara, and Christina from the Story Maps team at Esri with us. Michelle is the communications lead and content strategist. Lara is the content creator and product engineer on the team. And Christina is the content specialist on the Story Maps team. So as I mentioned, and as we've been talking throughout the program, the final projects are going to be prepared in a story map format. We had a session on introduction to GIS last week. So this is kind of the second session that we have that's focused on tools related to GIS, storytelling, and mapping. So we're really excited to hear from the Story Maps team. Every year, this is one of my favorite sessions because I learned so much from them. And our team definitely uses story maps across a wide range of activities and work streams that we have. So we're very excited to have all three of you with us today. And without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to you to take the lead.
Thanks so much, Miriam, and thank you for having us again. It's really exciting to be here. We have participated in Eco Ambassador since the first year it was offered, and it's been so exciting to see it grow and so many of you joining from around the world. So we can't wait to hear about your projects and speak with you today. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. As Miriam said, we are with ArcGIS Story Maps team. We are on the editorial team, so we do all kinds of things like make content to help you use the product, make inspiring stories, do workshops like these. We run a competition each year. We share your great stories out to inspire the community. So we really love what we do, and we're excited to share it with you today. We have a quick agenda. I'm going to give you just what is ArcGIS Story Maps? What can you do with it? Share a few inspirational examples. We're really excited to share with you what other students have done in the past, especially students related to water and the kind of topics that you're going to be discussing and building. There'll be a demo by Christina, which will be fabulous, I know. Then we'll do a little QA with you, answer all your questions. We will answer questions in the chat as we go as well, but if there's something bigger, we'll bring it to the group, and you can answer questions on the fly afterwards. And then we'll share some resources to get you started, and share a few things that we know that people always have questions about, that you may not know to ask until you get started. So without further ado, what is ArcGIS Story Maps? You can tell digital stories with maps. It's all online. The product itself combines maps, of course, interactive, with multimedia content and your text to tell impactful stories about the world. We try to make it easy because it's all mobile responsive. It's really nice actually in the builder. There's a way to actually check and see how your story looks on all different kinds of devices, just to make sure that it looks the way that you want it before you publish it to the world. There's an interactive builder. You don't need to know any kind of code. It's all one big block system where you drop things on, into a story. Christina will go through how to do that, but it makes it really easy to create a story that's beautiful, even if you don't know how to make a web page or anything like that. We have immersive blocks built in, so it's easy to make something that's engaging and exciting. And it's all in the cloud, so you don't have to host it yourself. Just so you have the information. You can find everything you need to know about ArcGIS Story Maps, or at least a good start, at esri.com/ArcGIS Story Maps. And we will go over some additional resources. So we put together this really handy collection. This is also made with ArcGIS Story Maps. What we're going to be talking about today is a story, but you can also put a story and all kinds of other information together into what's called a collection, and that's what this is. So our collection today that we've built for you, we will share it again a little bit later in the program when we go over the resources and give you that link, but it's all for you. Specifically, some getting started with storytelling itself, getting started with a builder. Here are stories that were actually created by high school and college students, a lot of them for our competition that we run every single year. We have some great collections of student stories in this collection. And then we also have, just so you know, the interviews with former competition winners. Everybody finds that really helpful because sometimes you're like, I just want to know, like, how did you build it? You know, do you have any tips? What's your advice? How did you do this kind of thing? So we will go over some of these resources after the Q&A, but it's good to know that those are there. So I'm going to share 3 of those inspiring student stories from this collection. Again, it's a mix. We have 2 college and 1 high school student story. And I'm going to go through and just kind of point out what we love about each story and point out some of the features that Christina will show you how to use. Okay, the first is Treasures of the Deep. I love this story. It's by Hannah Osborne, and she was actually a high school student, but learning from home and put this together. And she loved making maps, and she was also a very creative person, so put this together. It's all about deep sea mining, which, as you can imagine, can be a really cool topic or be a really boring topic. And she's done so much with it. So she begins the entire story with a hero. The hero is the gummy squirrel. This is why this is one of my favorite stories. But you'll notice here on the left, she's also used lighter text instead of just black text. She's made it navy or a tone of navy. You'll see throughout the entire story, one of the things you can do with ArcGIS Story Maps is create a custom theme for your story, so everything has a certain look and feel. So she goes on and tells us a little bit about the gummy worm, but her theme is starting to come in a little bit with these amazing icons. Tells us a little bit about the gummy squirrel's home with just a simple locator map. And then she uses what we love. It's a timeline. It's really easy. There are several different formats for this, but it's really easy to share information along a timeline. But as you'll see in this story and a few others, people use it in other ways as well. We love that the colors carry through in here. That she's used some quotes to break up some of the text. And she's used beautiful illustrations throughout and pictures throughout. A really nice thing about ArcGIS story maps is you can add photos, you can add photo galleries, you can add illustrations, you can make them small, you can make them big, but it really breaks up some of the text in the story and makes it easier to read. She talks about all the different kind of mining permits that are out there, and she uses an interactive map for that. You'll see you can go through and it will take you through the different content. And again, instead of using the timeline block just for time, she also uses for the different kinds of mineral deposits that are out there. It was a really clever use of a timeline. Again, using maps, using what this is called an actual sidecar with text on the side and a map on one side. A sidecar can also be full screen with the text running over or overlaid over the map or image that you use. Again, pulling that theme in with the great graphics. This uses a sidecar, but the style is a slideshow. So sometimes, I'm sure you know, you're rolling through a web page or an article, and it gets really long with the scrolling. We love the slider like this, the slideshow, just because it breaks up that story and gets people engaged in a very different way. They have to get engaged to make the story move. And again, she starts to add some maps, continues with that beautiful theme, goes into the impacts. Again, using quotes and breaking up the story with different kinds of blocks to make it engaging. One of the things that I like so much about this, and we love about every story, is a call to action at the end. You don't want to have too many, but one or two calls to action, like, what do I do? And that's really the point when you start your story is, what is the point of the story? What are the messages I'm trying to get across? And what do I want people to do when they finish with this story? We have another one. This was by, she is a graduate student now, but at the time was an undergrad, did a really beautiful job and was in actually the design area of her school. But once again, has really beautiful illustrations. I mentioned that sidecar. This is a sidecar, but full width with the text running over it instead. So in the background, you see, you can put a map, you can put images, you can put a video and make some really nice effects. Also in your stories, you can create little custom separators throughout, just to give it a little something extra. Again, breaking up the text, sometimes with images, but a lot with illustrations, with quotes. Not everyone has access to all beautiful images, but it's really easy to break up your text with quotes and things like that. Also, you can embed other content into your story, whether it's videos, social media posts, charts, tables, graphs, other dashboards, things that you make with GIS tools. You can embed them all in story maps. It's a really nice way to bring it all together. Beautiful mapping here. And you'll see that why we love this story. It's so engaging and it's so beautiful. And so much of it is said through the visual language of the story. Okay, let me get to the bottom of this because I want to show you something important that I know you will have questions about. Is thinking about how do I credit things? I'm doing all this research. What do I do with my story? What kind of credits do I give? We actually have a credit section that you can turn off or on in your story. And it almost looks like that little timeline block, except it's a list like this. We see people use this a lot. We also see people go through and put the credits within their story in line. Sometimes they do both. Just a couple different ways to share research and give people credit as you go through your story. And then finally, this is one of our competition winners from last year. Two people who are in college out in Oregon. It's all about crab pots, and you see that they used a darker theme to go with the ocean and the water that they're working with. They do a lot of the same kinds of things, really nice, mixture of quotes and pictures. But this is my favorite part of what they do, is that they actually do embed a lot of video directly in to engage people so that you can see like what kind of work are they actually doing out there in the ocean. They actually give live examples so that you can see it. And this is something we don't see as often, but I think it's really a really neat way to use timeline, is actually in the side of a sidecar. But once again, using that amazing video capability. And this is what a little gallery looks like. You've seen photos in the other stories. This is actually a photo gallery, and you can make it small, you can make it large, and you can add as many pictures as you like. Although we think doing it in a strategic way to engage people is probably sometimes less is more. You have some beautiful maps. One of the things you'll notice, maybe, is that these maps are actually all one map. One of the nice things, and I'm sure Christina will show you this in a sidecar, is that you can duplicate it, and you can have as many slides as you'd like in a sidecar. So as you duplicate it, you can keep the map the same, but just move where the focus is of the map. And that's what we call map choreography. It's a really cool way that's really easy to make it look like you're making a lot of maps when you only have one, but you can actually guide people, your readers, through an experience by using it. And I love that they have a map, and on the left side, more information to engage people, to explain what's happening in the map as well. And this is one of my favorites. If you have a before and after, or a compare and contrast, the little slider block, love this. It's really easy, as you can imagine, especially if you're looking at something over time. Maybe you're looking at land and what it looked like 10 years ago versus what it looks like now. It's a really compelling way to deliver information. You can put maps in there, you can put images in there. You have some options. Again, going through, doing a nice job of combining different kinds of media together. And again, they did a very nice job with all of their credits and using this section and linking out to the resources that they cited, which is always really important to us. So those are a few of our favorites. You've seen some of what it can do. Now it's your turn to learn how to do it yourself. So I'm going to hand it over to Christina now.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Again, I'm Cristina Cañizares, and I'm the Global Outreach Specialist on the Story Maps team. And today I'm going to show you how to use the ArcGIS Story Maps Builder, and we're going to build our story together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm also going to turn off my camera to conserve some bandwidth for the demo. I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, so the best way to get started is to go to our website, esri.com/arcgissstorymaps.com, and it'll take you to this page. And you want to go ahead and click on the Sign In tab. And the Sign In tab will take you this page, which will give you two options. You want to go ahead and select the Sign In to ArcGIS Story Maps. Go to storymaps.com, would take you to our personal storytelling tool, but you want to go ahead and make sure you select the ArcGIS Story Maps tool in order to integrate some of that wonderful GIS capabilities that are offered. All right, it'll take you to this page. You want to go ahead and put in your username and password and sign in with your credentials. And you're quickly ushered to this page, which is the My Projects page. And it'll look similar to something like this. And it's got basically all the content that you're working on. This is a jumping off point for all your ArcGIS Story Maps content. You're able to see some of the stories that I'm working on here. Some are in draft mode, some are already published. And the neat thing about this is if you look at the upper left-hand corner, it'll show you all the outputs that can be done with ArcGIS Story Maps. The first are the stories, of course. The second are the briefings, which are short form presentation format. The presentation that Michelle is sharing is actually made on a briefing. The next are collections, which Michelle briefly touched upon. And those are just groups of stories that you can gather together. And the last are themes, which is a treatment that you can put on your stories that'll change the look and feel and change the colors and such. And we'll play more around on themes as the demo progresses. Under that, you'll see some quick links. And these are great resources and tutorials that'll help you get started to build your story. At any point, you can return back to this My Projects page by going up to the profile menu here, the little circle, clicking it and selecting My Projects, and it'll take you right back to this page. You can also type in the URL up here, storymaps.arcgis.com, but it's usually easier to just tap that profile pic and go back to the projects page. So let's go ahead and get started and make our story. What you want to do is you want to click this teal button that says New Story on the upper right corner. As you can see, it'll produce this drop-down menu that gives you a few different options on what you can do. You can start a story from scratch, or you can use one of the quick start templates that'll go ahead and populate the story with some of the templates from the immersive blocks you can do. You can start with Sidecar, and you can start with the guided map tour or Explorer map tour. This is really handy if you know already what type of story you'd like to create, but we're gonna go ahead and get started from scratch and build our story from scratch today. So I'm gonna click that. And as you can see, it quickly ushers me to within the builder. And I'm going to go ahead and create a story that's inspired by a story that we created with our chief scientist, Dawn Wright, about her historic dive down to the deepest part of the ocean, Challenger Deep, in the Mariana Trench. I think it was apropos since we're talking about oceans and water in this space. I went ahead and grabbed some content from the story so I can go ahead and build this one today. So the first thing it's asking me is to give the story a title. So I'm going to go ahead and do that based on the story that we created. It's also giving me an optional subtitle, which I have. I'm going to go ahead and grab that from my other story and put that in. And you can type directly in here, or you can cut and paste from a Word doc or a Google Doc if you like, which is another wonderful feature of the story builder. It's very flexible. It goes ahead and populates my name here as the author, but at any point you can change this, you can edit this, and you can even delete the name if you like. Today, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. Next, once you publish your story, the story automatically defaults to giving the date of publication on the story. So let's say you wanted to change that date once you publish it. You can go up here to the three-dot ellipsis menu on the upper right-hand corner and click it, and select the story settings option from the drop-down. And it ushers you into this display and language and region setting menu. You can go ahead and here and click on date on the cover. Again, it automatically defaults to the original publication date, but you can update that to the last date it was updated. You can update that to the current date, or you can choose to not have a date at all on your story. I'm going to go ahead and hide the date for our purposes. And if you keep scrolling down, you've got language and region options selected. Here, my ArcGIS Story Maps is configured in English, and it's got standard US dates and number formatting, and yours might be different depending on what part of the world you're in. And this is useful because if you're creating a story in a language other than your default language, you're able to quickly update it here. And the ArcGIS Story Maps Builder supports over 40 languages. And this is really important because you want to make sure that screen readers and browsers work as expected. So that's why it's important to set the language that your story is in. But for the purpose of this demo, our story is in English, so I don't need to make any changes. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and add a cover image to my story to give it some pizzazz and flair. So I can go ahead and click on this add cover image. And I'm going to browse through some files on my local drive. Again, I pulled some images from the original story. And I'm going to grab this image of Dawn being hoisted down into the submersible to add. And as you can see, it went ahead and added it under the title. And if I click this gear option here, I'm able to change the focal point of the image if I want to orient it differently under display. And then there's another tab that has properties. And again, this gives me an option to add attribution if I need to credit anybody for this image, as well as alternative text, which is great for accessibility because it allows you to describe your image to make your content more accessible. So I'm going to go ahead and add some alt text there to describe this image, and I'm going to save it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm not loving the way that this image looks in comparison to the title, so I want to change that. And I can do so by going up to the design panel on the upper right corner and clicking on design. And it gives me immediately some options for my covers. Right now it's set to minimal. I can click full and I get a full image and the text is over that image. Or I could click a side by side. And I think this is going to work best for our story. It highlights and enhances the image best this way. Next thing that I see in this design panel is I can turn on the navigation panel. So I'm going to click that. And as soon as I do, I see this bar that appears under the cover image and text, and it links directly to title text and allows me to create links throughout my story so that my reader can bounce around throughout the story. This is especially useful if you've got different chapters or sections, or if you have a very long story to tell. This is a good thing to turn on, and I'll show you how that works a little later on. The next thing we have is the credits, which Michelle mentioned. This is automatically turned on, and it's a good standard best practice to have these on because I am going to be using images and multimedia and maps from other folks that I'm going to want to credit and cite, so I can turn that on. After that, you'll see the different themes that are available. And themes, again, can let you change the look and feel of your story. And there's 6 standard themes here that are available, and I can cycle through and you can see that it automatically changes the colors and the fonts of my story. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it on Summit for right now. And we are going to go ahead and create a custom theme a little later on in the demo. But one great thing to note about the themes is that they support suitable color contrasts and other accessibility design features. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's important to make your stories more accessible to a diverse audience. And the builder helps support that. And you can also upload a logo here if you like. Right, so let's go ahead and click on to close that design panel. And we're going to go ahead and get started in with the block palette and add some text. So I'm going to go ahead. The way the original story is set up is that it's sort of like a journal entry, chronicling the time of the launch and everything that happens throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this plus sign, and this opens up the block palette with all the different types of blocks that you can add. You've got some basic blocks like text and buttons and tables that you can add. You've got some media blocks like images and video, and the immersive sidecar and map tour. We'll talk a little bit about some of these, but let's go ahead and get started with adding some text. So automatically, I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste my text that I grabbed from my folder. And then if I highlight it, I'm going to have this formatting option that pops up, and it automatically defaults to my text to a paragraph. But if I click it, I'm able to change it to different things like quotes or bullets. If I change it to a header 1, it automatically becomes a section header or a title text, and it appears up here in my navigation bar. But since this is a very long title, I don't love the way it looks on my navigation bar. So I can click this gear icon in the navigation bar again. It'll pop up whatever is already in my navigation. I can quickly select it and change it and update it. So I'm going to just change it to launch because this is the first entry we're making, and save it. And that automatically updates my navigation bar with that text that I changed. Next, let's go ahead and add some paragraph text under my title. So again, I'm going to hit the plus sign. It's going to open up that block palette. I'm going to select text, and I'm going to paste my text in. Again, if you highlight anything, it'll open up that formatting panel, and I could bold, I could italicize things as I see fit. I could add links, etc. So that's one of our basic palettes. Now let's go ahead and add a map to our story. So under the media section in the block palette, I've got an option here to add a map. And if I click it, it'll automatically take me to this page, which will list my content. These are the maps that I've already created. If I click on my organization, these are maps that others within my group have shared that I could add in. There's also public content of maps that have been created. And there's the Living Atlas, which has thousands of authoritative data sets and layers that you can use and add. And you can also create your own custom map using Express Maps. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to go up to the upper right-hand corner and click this teal button that says New Express Map. And it's going to open up this page here with a map. And if I hit the gear icon, it's given me this basic human geography light map, which is great. However, since we're mapping the ocean floor, I think I want something with a little bit more texture. So I can click on this section here under select base maps, and it gives me a variety of different options for maps. And I'm going to choose the topography map to give it some more texture. And that's how quickly you can change a map and add. And with these, with this Express map, you can add points, you can add lines, you can add polygons and circles, and you can even add text to annotate your map. So let's go ahead and look for the Mariana Trench, because that's what the area that we're covering. And as you can see, it found it for me. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to add a point, add to the map. So I'm going to click this button here. It's going to add a point. And then if I click over to the left-hand side to the menu and I click on layers, it gives me some options to enhance this point in the story. I could add an image or a video to describe this point a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and grab an image that I have of the Mariana Trench. And that'll add it to the point. I can change the name of the point, but I think for right now, that's fine, Mariana Trench. And I can even add a description. So I'm going to add a description of what the Mariana Trench is and what my image is describing. So I just cut and paste and I put that in. Now this map is great, but it doesn't really orient the reader as to where exactly the Mariana Trench is located on Earth. So I could go back to this gear icon up in the menu section. At the very bottom, it's got an overview map. You could turn on a legend as well, but I want to go ahead and turn on this overview map. And if I slide this on, this pop-up of a 3D globe appears, and it sort of highlights and focuses the area where you'll find the Mariana Trench. So I am going to go ahead and save that. And once I do, it pops it into my story. And again, you've got options here. You can change the size. You can make it smaller. You can make it bigger. You can make it medium. You can also click the gear icon, and again, you can add alternative text for accessibility to describe your map. And you can also add a caption. So let's go ahead and add some more text and change the layout of that text and make that a quote. So I'm going to grab some text. I'm going to hit the plus. I'm going to hit text and go ahead and paste this in. And then I'm going to highlight it. Again, the formatting menu pops up. I can click it and I can instantly turn this into a quote. And I'm just going to take the source quote. And just like that, your text can go from straight text to something that's a little bit more engaging to break up that story. Okay, the next palette we're going to talk a little bit about is under the media section. We looked at maps, and now we're going to add an image gallery. Like Michelle showed you, there's a way to go ahead and batch upload images into your story to really create a much more engaging and attractive story. So I'm going to grab some images from Dawn's Dive that I have from the original story. And I've selected them all, and they sort of appear here, and I can go ahead and add them. And it goes ahead and gives me an option to look at these images in this way. If I click on the gear options again, it gives me a display menu that allows me to change the look and feel. I can use the dynamic squares. I can also use a jigsaw, which is great if you've got both landscape and portrait type images, or you can use a film strip. In this case, I have a nice number of 6 images, and I think the dynamic square is going to work. Also, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And that's my image gallery. I can also go ahead and click on the individual images, and I can click the edit, and I can crop them, I could shape them, I can annotate them, and I could do different things to them. And if I click on the gear of the individual image, again, I could hit properties, and I can add credit or attribution for the individual image at this point. And I can also add my alt text at this point. So it's completely customizable. And although you've got this block of images, you're able to customize each one. I'm going to go ahead and add a caption here, which gives you, once you put in an image gallery, it gives you an option to add a caption. So I'm going to go ahead and do so here. Okay, so next we're going to talk about another media block within the block palette, which is the swipe. And Michelle showed you a little bit about how this works and told you a little bit about how this works. The great thing about this is it allows you to compare, contrast two images or two maps over time. And it's great to show change over time or growth over time. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and upload some pictures of Dawn's Dive, where the submersible actually landed and the ground it actually covered. So I'm going to grab my first image, which shows where the submersible actually landed in the Mariana Trench. And then I'm going to click on image here, and I'm going to upload a second image that shows the area that it covered, that the submersible covered. And then when you look at it, you see that I can slide it, and my reader can compare and contrast where it landed and where it actually went and what it explored. So that's a great little tool if you've got something to compare and contrast. Next, I'm going to go ahead and talk about our immersive blocks. These are 2 special blocks that we have that'll really engage your reader into your story. The first is a sidecar. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And right off the bat, it gives me a few options on how to display a sidecar. I can use it. I can use a doc panel, and this is great if you've got a really text-heavy narrative and you have a lot of words. This is a great way to sort of showcase that content. I've got an option of a floating panel, and this really shows up. This really shows off maps and media that you have with little text. And I also have this slideshow orientation, which is great if you've got something that's horizontal and you want to be able to click through the different panels. For today, I'm going to go ahead and select floating because we're going to create some map choreography, and we're going to show off some maps and some videos in our sidecar. So I'm going to go ahead and select floating and save it. And it automatically populates the sidecar into my story, and I'm going to go ahead and add here, click this add, and I can add an image or code or an embed. I'm going to go ahead and add a map here. And this time, instead of creating an express map like we did before, I'm going to go into the Living Atlas, which has thousands of authoritative data layers that we can use. And since we're studying the ocean floor, I'm going to look for a map on bathymetry.
Oh, I don't have to talk, but I couldn't hear anything.
Excuse me. And then I'm going to go ahead and click this map. This is a good one that maps the ocean floor. I'm going to click this. And it's going to automatically open this map for me. And I'm going to find the Mariana Trench in it. I just sort of typed it in up in the search bar. Click it. It finds it for me. It loads it. And I'm going to leave the zoomed out version, and so that I can do some map choreography like Michelle mentioned and duplicate this slide. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And that becomes my first slide. I'm also going to I can add some text here. And that's my first slide in my slide car. And then if I look at the first slide here down in the down in the menu panel, I see a 3-dot ellipsis. I can click that and I can hit duplicate, and I can duplicate my slide. So the first and the second are the same. And then from here, if I click on the pencil to edit the second slide, it brings me right back to the map. So I don't have to find it or anything like that. And then in this case, I'm just going to zoom in on the trench. So I'm going to use the plus sign on the right of the map to go ahead and zoom in. And as we can see, this is the Mariana Trench. And I'm going to save that. So it quickly bounces from a zoomed out version in slide 1 to a zoomed in version of the Mariana Trench. And that creates that map choreography, which makes it look like your map is moving and all you're doing is really just changing the point of view of what you're seeing in that map. So in addition to maps, you can add other things to a sidecar. So I'm going to, instead of duplicating, I'm going to create a new slide here by clicking the plus sign on the right of the menu. And again, it creates this drop down menu here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a video. I'm going to show a video of the expedition. So I'm going to click video. Again, I'm going to browse my files, my local file, and I'm grabbing a video of that actual expedition to add here. And I'll put in video. And that's how you can quickly create different sorts of experiences, and your audience can move through your story and different content that way. And if I change my mind and let's say I don't like that layout, that floating panel, I can go up here to change at any time and change it either to a doc or a slideshow. I'm going to just keep it as is though today. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and click that I'm going to open up that block palette again, and I'm going to add a separator just to separate my the next section that I'm going to add in from this slide from the slide car. So I'm going to click the plus again, and I'm going to visit our second immersive block, which is map tour. So I'm going to click that, and again, it automatically ushers me into this page, what allows me to create a map tour from scratch. Or even better, if you have photos that are geotagged, you can go ahead and upload those, and the builder will automatically point those on a map, and you don't have to add the points. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch today. And again, it gives me a couple different options on how to view my content. You could do a guided map tour or an explorer tour. The guided map tour works great if you only have a few points, because it guides your reader through the experience. If you have many points, the explorer tour might be best because it allows your reader to pick and choose what they see and where they go, that sort of choose their own adventure. But today you can also have a media focus if your pictures and images really stand out for the map tour, or you can have a map focus if you're, going to different places and you want to really just highlight that. Today, since I only have a few things to add, I'm going to go ahead and select the guided tour, and I'm going to choose the map focus. And I'm going to save it. Again, it automatically populates the story with this wonderful map, and it lets me add an image for my map tour. So I'm going to go ahead and browse and grab an image of Guam, which is near the Mariana Trench. I'm going to add that to my map tour. I'm going to go ahead and put in some text. And since this isn't tagged anywhere on the map, I'm going to go ahead and add a location. Again, it pops up this wonderful map. I'm going to go ahead and, in this case, the flat map is fine because we're just showing different locations. And I'm going to go ahead and put in Guam. Again, the drop down automatically searches for me. And there's Guam. That's fine. I can move the point, but this is fine for now. I'm going to go ahead and add it to my map, and I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a second location for this tour. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a second image so that my reader knows has some visual interest instead of just looking at points. And this is an image of the Mariana Trench. So I'm going to put that in. And again, I want to orient it and give it a point so it can be located on a map. So I'm going to add location. It automatically defaults to number one, the last point that I added on my map tour. So I'm going to go up to the search and find the Mariana Trench. I'm going to click it. The map has located it for me. I'm going to add a point, and that's going to be number 2 on my map tour, and I'm going to save it. And there you have it. You can quickly have a reader, guide a reader through an experience to different points on a map. And let's say again, if I wanted to change it, I can go over to the options menu in the map tour menu and change the layout. And I can also duplicate the tour. So let's go ahead and duplicate it. And it creates a carbon copy under the first. And this way you don't have to start from scratch, and you can just change the pictures or layouts and whatnot. You can also do this with Sidecar and duplicate it. And let's say I change my mind and I don't like this so much. So I can go ahead and go to the upper left-hand corner and click the undo button. And it goes ahead and deletes that. And you can use the undo throughout your building experience, which is a new feature that we added. So at the end, as Michelle mentioned, we always like to end the story with a call to action and to share resources. So let's go ahead and create a resource section. I'm going to highlight this and change it to a header 1 under that formatting block. And as you can see, it populates my navigation bar that's been following us as we've been creating this story. And I want to be able to guide my reader to learn more and to explore more by giving them some links, by giving them a link to share. So I can do that by clicking this the plus sign again, and I can hit embed under the media. And this feature allows me to go ahead and copy paste a URL to a web page and add it to my story. And it creates an iframe. So the automatic default is the actual web page, the full embed. But as you can see, it doesn't really go with the look and feel of my story because it's a full web page and with lots of resources. So instead of going with this full embed, I can click on the first option in this icon, which is to display it as a card. And this creates a custom card for the website that I just embedded, which is much cleaner for my story. And if you click the gear icon within the card, again, you can click on custom card details, and you can change the title, you can change the description, and you can upload a different thumbnail or image for this card. I'm going to go ahead and, for right now, it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And that's how you would go ahead and sort of end your story with that sort of call to action and to learn more. And at the very end of the story, since we turned on credits in the design panel and what Michelle mentioned, it gives me an option to add credits. I can go ahead and cite resources and citations I use. I can attribute credit for maps or any images that I use. If I didn't do so already in the image or the map directly, I can do that now. If somebody helped edit my work, or they provided any kind of resource or input, I'm able to do so here. And this is just quickly something that you can add and you can update. So at this point, my story is complete. So the next thing I'd like to do is, as I mentioned, I can really take my story to the next level by creating a custom theme to really go with the style of the content I created. And I can go up to the design panel again, and I'll scroll down to the themes that we looked at. And if you click here that says manage my themes, this is a hyperlink that'll take you to your themes page within my projects sort of jumping off point that we talked about earlier. And this shows you all the themes I've created. And you can also scroll to my organization. And these are themes that have been shared by others within my group that I can use. But and you can also create a new theme. For the purposes of this demo, I went ahead and got started and created a new theme that sort of matched the look and feel of the original story. So we're going to go ahead and click that. But this is how you would create a custom theme yourself. Again, here you can go ahead and name the theme and name it anything you like. And you can customize the colors, the background colors, the secondary colors, accent colors. One cool thing here is if you click on, let's just click on this color, this basic color, you can see that there's a drop-down menu called Legible here, which is a wonderful tool because it allows you to see, let me go ahead and see if I can get more of this today. This Legible drop-down menu allows you to see the readability of the story. That it compares and contrasts. It shows the comparison of the contrast colors, and shows you the acceptable thresholds in terms of how accessible the story is to readers that might be vision impaired. So this is a great feature that's built into the theme builder. In addition to that, you can change the typography, you can change the fonts to your story, and you can bring in Google Fonts, you can change the colors to those fonts. You can customize buttons. You could add buttons in your story with hyperlinks to other things. And you can do so here. You can change the styles of what they look like. You can customize the way that quotes look. You can give them different treatments. You can customize the way that links look, as well as separators. So you can use custom separator. You can also create a custom separator. In this case, I uploaded an image that I made to create and made this our custom separator. Instead of having a line or some of the defaults, you can actually customize that and create something that's sort of unique to your story. And you can decide where to position that as well. You can also change the base map that automatically appears when we do map tours here. And you can also upload a logo. Okay, so this theme is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. And I'll talk a little bit more about publishing when we actually publish our story, but let's go ahead and publish this now. Okay. And once this is published, you can go back into your story. And if you browse my themes, you'll see that the new theme that we just created is available. And I can click it and select it, and it automatically changes the look and feel and colors and fonts of my story. And finally, we can go ahead and publish the story by hitting publish on the upper right-hand corner. And you can customize the way that it appears, the card appears, by hitting edit, and you can change the title, the summary of the story. And when you publish, you've got a couple different options. You can publish it privately, so only you see it. You can publish it for your organization, others in your groups to see it. And you can publish it for everyone to see it out in the world. And if you select either organization or everyone, it also gives you an additional option to allow for duplication. All that means is that others that see the story are able to make a copy of your story to use as a template, maybe to create a new story. And then I'm going to go ahead and publish it privately for today. And there you have it. That's it. That is the story builder from Soup to Nuts. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Christina. That was great. I think next on our agenda, we were going to try to take some questions from folks and then go over the resources. So I know that we received one question already about working in teams. Miriam, maybe you could speak a little bit to how you want people to work together in your program.
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. And a heads up to everyone, in a couple minutes, we'll share a Google form where you can share your project ideas and also let us know whether or not you want to work with a group on your final project or if you want to work on it individually. So some of the feedback that we received from the students last week was that they were really excited about the opportunity to collaborate with fellow peers from, different regions around the world, or perhaps, within their own school or class. So we're definitely open to group projects. So they do have that option. And yeah, everyone do keep an eye out on the chat. We'll share the link to the Google form where you can share your project ideas, which are due on Friday. So over to you, Michelle.
Great, thanks. Well, and I'm sure that if you decide you're going to work in a group or have a group project, that Miriam and the other Echo Ambassador program managers will put you into what's called a group in RGS Online so that you can work on one story together. I don't want to misspeak there, Miriam, about how you're organizing it, but that is an option. One thing that's really important for you to know if you're working in a group is that you really only want one team member working in the builder at one time. So you can all have access to the same story, but you want to make sure that you're communicating about who is in the builder, because if you try to change something while somebody else is in the builder changing, you can overwrite each other's content. A nice thing about that, we do know that that's an issue, is that it will give you a little, pop-up that says someone else is in the builder right now. Are you sure you want to change it? Are you sure you want to resave? And you can get out of the builder. So it does let you know, but as a team for story maps, we work on stories together all the time. And usually if somebody's going into the builder, we just either send a little jump emoji or going into the builder, out of the builder. So I just want you all to be aware of that, because it can be a little bit frustrating if you're working directly in the builder and someone overwrites what you're doing. So as a team, you just have to be a team and make sure you're working together using the builder. Any other questions?
Yeah, and the best thing to do is just to jump in the builder and get started and play around with it so that you're comfortable. We find that we write a lot of stories offline, either in a Google Doc or Word or whatnot, and then cut and paste like I did during the demo, because that sort of helps you outline and organize sort of your thoughts before you go in. But, there's really no right or wrong way of going in and creating that story.
Hi.
Go ahead.
What did you press, Mami?
Did you have a question? Oh, okay. It looks like they unmuted themselves. Bernice, go ahead.
Yeah, so during the map tour, if you want to be able to, instead of pointing on a certain location, are you able to add a larger circle to cover an area, or is it only specific to like one area in a map tool on a map?
That's a good question. You're able to, what I did was I looked at specific areas, but you can plop you can plop a locator point anywhere on a map.
And you can also change the extent of your map tour. So you can zoom out if you wanted to show a wider area.
Yeah. And in Express Maps, making your own map, you can use different different shapes to represent an area as well.
Yes. Yeah, you could create a circle or a polygon or a line, or you can just annotate with text as well in an Express
Mhm.
map. Veronica, do you want to unmute?
So how do you find like the difference or like the perfect medium of like not using too many features to like overload people, but also having enough that you keep people interested?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in the list of resources that we have, the collection, there's a great resources that says how to get started with ArcGIS and create your first story. And that sort of highlights different points that you can use. But I think it's really just trial and error. As you build that story, if it looks too text heavy, you might want to add some more images. If it looks like it's got too many sort of immersive blocks or other media blocks, you might want to pare some of that down. So it's really just a question of finessing that and editing that once you get going.
Yeah, I think I'd also add that, up front, knowing exactly what you want to get out of the story and what you want people to do and know when they finish the story. We all really get excited about our projects. I can't tell you how much we cut our stories as we get into them. We'd usually do a lot of that actually on paper first and cut it and then put it in the builder and like, oh, that's a lot of text to read. Can we break it up? I think it's really nice to have a lot of white space within your story. So, using different kinds of blocks, sometimes immersives can get to be a lot. So using different kinds of blocks like the quote block or the, larger text versus smaller text. And I do think in that collection that we made for you, the interviews, reading those interviews with the storytellers will be really helpful because they are all facing the exact same thing that you do, and coming up with the story and narrowing it down, they say is always the hardest thing for them to do. So I would definitely recommend reading those interviews. And also afterwards, have a couple other people read it, people who will tell you the truth and like, I really like this, but it feels really long. Or, I love this, but can I have more pictures of this? So having other people read it for you is really helpful too.
Absolutely.
I've seen lots of hands.
Zarilla, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we were like working along on our projects and it's coming together pretty nicely, but then we want to do something like more specific and we can't figure out how to do it. Is there anyone that we could like contact to kind of like help us figure out how to get like our vision through exactly, even if it's maybe not a tool that's explicitly on the story maps?
Sure. Well, I know that Miriam and her team are amazing and make a lot of stories and can help, but they can always put you in touch with our team. We're always happy to look at your drafts, make suggestions. We want your stories to be the best they can be. And it's a lot of fun making these stories, so we want it to be that way. So if you want our feedback, Miriam, contact your team there and we'll see what we can do.
If I can jump in real quick, if you look at the program agenda, we do have a virtual office hours coming up in a couple weeks once you've had time to kind of work with story maps and start a draft. So that is an opportunity for you to come to us with any questions you might have. And if we see there are a lot of questions related to the story map builder, perhaps we can organize a session with Michelle and the team if they're available to do like a virtual office hour with
Absolutely.
that.
Thanks, Miriam.
DeBellis, would you like to unmute?
Yes, so to be honest, I'm still a little lost because I mostly saw people talk about local or global issues, but I just want to take a step in the future and talk about consequences, then going back to something else. Because I just wanted to do that, but I don't know if I can really implement it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I can jump in here in terms of kind of the how to approach thinking about the idea of your project. And as we briefly touched on last week, so the idea is for everyone to present a solution that they have thought of or would like to implement or would like to develop related to a local sustainability challenge within the scope of this year's program theme, which is oceans, rivers, and microplastics. So perhaps your solution is still in the ideation phase and you can still propose the idea and perhaps think of steps of implementation that you can take, after the program. So I would say generally we're hoping to see action-oriented and solution-oriented projects. So whether it's, something that you would want to implement or plan for the future, or perhaps take action now, that will probably vary across different projects. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Hey, Prisha, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. So I know you mentioned that there's going to be an office hour in a couple of weeks, but I was wondering if there is an opportunity to get on and speak with someone about topic ideas before we submit them on Friday.
You can definitely, there are 2 emails that we've shared with everyone. You can reach out to those emails with ideas and any questions you have about those ideas, and we'd be happy to get back to you via email. And we do have another session on Friday, so if there are any pressing issues, we could try to use a little bit of time to go over those on Friday.
Thank you. And just to confirm, which emails are those?
I think they were sent out last week, but perhaps in another follow-up email. There's an SDGs Today email and I think a CSD email. So you can reach out to one of those.
Thank you.
Hey, Sarah M., would you like to unmute?
Yes, thank you. I would just like to ask if possibly we have a change of heart about our project ideas after Friday. I'd just like to ask the consequences of that, because you could, of course, change ideas about how you want your project to look in the end. I just would like to know if we have to stick with the one we'll choose before Friday, or if we have the right to change it after that.
Yeah, if you want to change your project direction or idea, you can communicate that to us via email and just inform us that you're taking kind of a different direction to your project, and then we can discuss the details then.
All right, thank you.
And I do see a question about when projects are due. So final projects, so story maps are due on August 30th. So before then, we'll have office hours, virtual office hours for any questions that you might have. You can reach out to us via email. And we can go over any questions you have. But final story maps are due on August 30th. And maybe I can address a few more points related to your ArcGIS accounts. So if you didn't fill out the Google form that was shared with everyone last week and you just submitted your information today, it'll take a little bit of time until you receive the email. So check back again tomorrow if you haven't received the email. Are there any questions related to story maps? We have a few more minutes. I think as Michelle and Christina mentioned, once you start working with it and you get your hands on it, I think that's when a lot of the questions will come up. So we'll definitely have opportunities to go over any questions you might have in the future.
Great. May I share my screen again one more time?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just quickly. I believe that Laura put this in the chat, but we'll drop it in there one more time. This is the collection that we made for you. This is the webinar briefing that we used today, but these first few are just about how to use ArcGIS Story Map, what makes a good story, just planning, your story. These are some of the sample stories that I showed and some more. If you scroll down a little bit more, you do see a lot more student stories, but here's where you get into interviews with the competition winners. And that's not just students, it's everybody in the last 3 years who has won the competition. Interviews with all of them, super, super helpful. If you're looking for ideas for SDGs, we actually have a collection that's all about SDGs, and we have a little story within the collection for each of the SDGs that has data sources, sample stories for inspiration, all of that, really super helpful. But I just wanted to make sure that I pointed this out, that this takes you directly to the product, but these links on the side takes you to our resources page with tutorials, how-tos, links to our blog, links to our videos, all of that. Here's a story gallery that you can, run through and see other stories that aren't listed in this collection. There's a video playlist. I know somebody asked about that specifically in the chat, DM'd me. Click on this, you can actually see like all of the videos that we have. People ask a lot about where do I find stories? Images for my stories. This resources for visual design has a lot of beautiful stories, but also links just like this on where to find them. And also how to cite your stories, your sources and stories as you get started. So I highly recommend using this resource. It's very, very helpful. And is a really good place to start for ideas, but also for resources. So, that's it.
And I think we have one more question. Bashwar, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hello. I was telling that can we add music to background? Is an ArcGIS project.
Oh, sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Yes, you can add audio files to your story. We like to use them for narrating sections of stories or sharing interview bits, that type of thing. Let me see if I can find a good example of an audio file added to a story. Or if Michelle, Michelle or Christina, if you know one off the top of your head, I think we have some of those resources in here where audio is embedded in the story.
Yes.
There might be one in the Dawn story. Challenge accepted.
1 second, let me.
While you're looking, I can share that one of the eco ambassadors last year conducted interviews for her final project, and she uploaded them as audio throughout and included it throughout her story map, which was really cool. So if you look through some of last year's final projects, you'll find some examples of how audio was incorporated in the story map.
And I put a link in there to our gallery. There's a filter for looking for specific things. This one is with audio. And so these are all stories that use audio, and they use them in different ways. Some people use audio for sound, some people use it for music. Some people actually narrate their stories. So pretty neat examples.
And I'm sharing a blog post that our colleagues did that includes links to a story that is an example. So I'm adding that to the chat here.
Thank you so much, Michelle, Christina, and Lara, for joining us and for this wonderful tutorial. All of these sessions are recorded, so I know we're all gonna go back and look through and follow along the tutorial. For those who already have access to their ArcGIS accounts, and for those of you who don't, hopefully you'll have access to them soon. So thank you again for joining us. It's been a wonderful session. And for any of the students, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I also shared the link to the Google form where you can submit your project ideas. So don't forget to share those with us by Friday. And we'll see you at the same time again on Friday, July 12th.
Thanks so much.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Having us. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Bye, everyone.